Yeah, no, I don't want to say this, I don't want to think it, but it's true. At time of recording, we are in the last act of 2025 already. And that means, for some people anyway, that Christmas is coming. No, wait, Christmas is coming anyway. It's in the calendar. It's like the date is coming. It's just the question is whether or not you happen to celebrate it or not. I think the thing is, so much of the world stops for Christmas. I mean, try getting your agent or a publisher over Christmas. I hope that whether you celebrate it or not, you get at least some kind of break. But if you do celebrate Christmas, I also hope that you either get to buy yourself something nice, or that actually, you know, I've always thought that delightful person standing there watching this with you, I mean, they could buy something for you. They're just nice, aren't they? We like them. We've talked about them before. This 58 keys, it's about things to buy for writers who use Apple gear. I mean, specifically hardware things, devices and things. There's a separate 58 keys about particular apps. And obviously that includes Apple gear, because they do quite a lot of it. But there's others, and all of it ranges in price from quite expensive to ow. But it'll also going to be practical. So I'm not showing you, for example, the iPhone Pocket for it, the woolen fabric thing, which I actually do have managed to drop in a puddle, and it's currently drying out. Dropped it in a puddle, £140 as well. Anyway, hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. Do please like, subscribe, or patronize 58 Keys, because, well, you and I have a lot to talk about, and first, I think there's actually quite a lot of Apple gear to run through for us. I mean, I say Apple gear, other companies are available. Other companies make other things. But we'll get to those. For now, let's start with the Mac, I think. The best Mac for most writers is probably the MacBook Air. You do always get more for your money, more performance, more storage space, whatever, when you buy any desktop Mac. And actually, desktop Macs, I think the Mac Mini is astoundingly great if you already have a screen, a keyboard, a mouse, or a trackpad to go along with it. And actually, I think the desktop iMac, well, that's just flat out great. There's no qualifications, no hesitation. You get everything in one go, screen, keyboard, the lot. But you can take a MacBook Air around with you wherever you go. And whether you really need to do that, or you just fancy the idea of finding a coffee shop to write in, we've all done it, MacBook Air lets you do that. I go to a coffee shop sometimes with an old MacBook Pro, which is a lot more powerful than the Air, but I tend to do more on it than solely writing. But still, every single time I pick up a MacBook Air, I am incredulous how light it is. MacBook Air starts at £1,000 or dollars. Normally, you shouldn't buy the starts at version of anything from Apple, because it's like they hit a price point for marketing, advertising purposes and things. And the awful truth is that usually the gear isn't actually all that usable if you don't spend a tiny bit more. But in this case, just for once, you could be fine with the starts at MacBook Air. My only concern is that it starts at 256 gigabytes of storage. Now, I think it's actually very hard to assess how much that really means to us as writers, what it gives us. But I can tell you that the starting point used to be 128 gigabytes, and that is unquestionably, undoubtedly, far too small for anyone. 256 gigabytes is twice 128 gigabytes. Look at the quality of information you get here, and twice is better than too small. And nonetheless, if you can swing it, go for a MacBook Air with at least 512 gigabytes. And that one costs £1,200 or dollars. Next, consider an iPad. I don't think there are many things to beat an iPad, and I'm a Mac fan. But funny enough, this is another time where I think you could get the starting one, the basic iPad, the regular one, call it that, which costs £350 or dollars, and it's good, it's fine. The more expensive models, they have better screens and they're faster, but I don't know that you would notice that unless you're going to put them side by side. I went for the other end of the scale, though. I went for a large screen M5 iPad Pro, which is just incredible. It's like having my whole Mac studio with me everywhere in the form of a piece of glass. It just did cost 5 times more than the regular iPad. I had reasons, I had uses and excuses. Got a birthday coming up. I may have possibly gone a little bit mad, but actually I'm really glad that I was able to. Tell you what, do this instead. Take a look at the one in the middle, the iPad Air though. Better screen than the iPad, cheaper than the iPad Pro. Also, the Air, as of the last couple of years, comes in 2 sizes. Choose the smaller one for portability and general brilliant handiness. Choose the larger one if you also know that you are going to be doing image or video work. Although if you're doing a lot of those, that's when you start looking at the iPad Pro. Now, iPhone. The base model, the iPhone 17, is right now the best mixture, I think, of performance and price, starting at £799 or dollars. Just as with the MacBook Air and the iPad, you could go with the starts at price. Now I've just said that, well, MacBook Air, I think I've said it 3 times already, but honestly, this is a weird time for Apple. The base or the entry models, okay, they still aren't automatically the best buy you could make, but for once they're good. Usually, I mean, is there like a new broom at Apple doing this? Because, in fact, this is also true with the Apple Watch. If you've never had one before, take a look at the Apple Watch SE3, which starts at £219 here in the UK or $249 in the US. That is for the smaller of 2 sizes. So your wrist or maybe your eyesight might drive you to the larger one, which starts at $399 or £369. There's then also slightly bigger, the Apple Watch Ultra. But there are also Apple Watch bands, though, you could look at for every type of Apple Watch. And that's key because, you know, they're on your wrist a lot. They tend to get a bit dirty. Plus, just for example, I switch between a couple of them because, I don't know, someday one will just feel more comfortable than the other. Also, just looking at it reminds me, this one is fabric that I'm wearing now, but I do have a metal one somewhere and I really like it. But when you're typing on a MacBook, it's like it can scrape the edges, so don't do that. And now AirPods. Actually, hang on, mine are charging over here. AirPods come in 3 versions. They're spaced at about £150 apart, $150 apart, $50 apart. They're all excellent, right? But the one to go for if you can is the AirPods Pro. I have the AirPods Pro 2. AirPods Pro 3 is out now, and that costs the same as the Apple Watch SE3, £219 or $249. AirPods Pro 3 has the best noise cancelling feature. You may not think you want that. I didn't, actually, because I like working in noise, but then you try them and, oh, okay, I'll have that. AirPods Pro 3 and 2 also have the new hearing test feature, which you may or may not be concerned with, but as well as assessing any issues with your hearing, it alters forever afterwards. It alters the music, the audio, anything you listen to better suit any issue you might have. Which is just amazing, isn't it really? Sometimes technology is incredible. Finally, though, we get past all of Apple's devices, I think. And the first other device... No, there's an Apple one coming. Okay, come to that. The first other device to look at is a keyboard. I mean, you've got one. But it gets hammered. You're a writer. Of course it does. It gets worn out. And a new keyboard is a really nice thing. In fact, I did actually mention keyboards a moment ago. I was talking about how you don't get one with the Mac Mini and you have to provide your own. It's actually the same with the Mac Studio, which I have, and the Mac Pro as well. And there's one odd thing. So just because I'm curious about this. When you buy something from Apple online, well, you go through the site ticking, yes, you want this, no, you don't want that, yes, you want this much, and then how much is it going to cost? I might take a little bit less. And then at the end, Apple tries to upsell you with other things, like always Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro in there somewhere with a Mac. With the Mac Pro, one of those other upsells is for Apple's own Magic Keyboard, but Apple doesn't plug those when you buy the Mac Mini or the Mac Studio. It's not like Apple to miss a chance to sell you something, but they've been doing this for years, not telling you. I think it's also a pain, actually, because first you've got to realise that you need to buy a keyboard, and then, well, if you don't already know, maybe you need to be told that Apple makes some, because Apple makes really good keyboards. You haven't always been able to say that, actually, but you can right now, as this is being recorded late 2025. I use mostly the Apple Magic Keyboard with numeric keypad, which costs £200 if you don't get it with your iMac or whatever, £200 or $200. But Apple also does a regular Magic Keyboard, which is $150. But significantly, both of those have a Touch ID button. So if you're used on a MacBook or MacBook Air, you've been able to confirm purchases, automatically enter passwords, or actually just wake up the Mac with a finger tap, it's hard not to have the same thing on your desktop Mac. But if you don't care, if you aren't fussed, or I suppose if you just don't know the convenience of Touch ID yet, there are, I counted, 11 billion alternative keyboards out there, such as this. The Logitech MX Mini for Mac. I've been leaning on it the whole time. Generally, Logitech makes first-class keyboards. I like almost every one I ever try. And recently, actually, I had to switch to this for a whole couple of days because there was a problem with that keyboard. And it took a while to get used to it. It felt somehow heavier when you were typing. But then when my other keyboard was fixed and I moved back to it because I wanted the keypad back, it took a while to get used to that one. It felt a bit too light. So you get used to anything, but a new keyboard is a good thing. Logitech MX Mini keys costs $100 retail, but is usually available for quite a bit less. I realised I started to count and I lost track. I don't know, I think it's because I'm doing a count up instead of a count down. Why am I doing that? Okay, but a practical thing. External battery. This is a UGreen one. I talk about it a lot. I use it a lot. You charge up your iPhone, your iPad, or your MacBook with it. I've used it for all three. I think a couple of times I've actually used it for all three at the same time as well, although there's a limit to how much you can do. The MacBook and the iPad particularly eat up the battery charge, but it got them all working. I took this one with me to Paris the other weekend, and it was great. But it was too heavy to be carrying it around the city for. It just felt like it was going to tear my pocket and fall out. So I do recommend it, but actually, no, not quite. I recommend the newer version of it that comes with a little loop there that's actually a USB-C cable. It's like hardwired in, so you're never having to look for a cable. The UGreen Nexode power bank retails for £80, but it's typically £60 or less, or in the US, retails $100 and it sells for about $70. There are others, there's so many others. I'm looking for a kind of smaller, flatter one to go in the pocket. But I don't really have any further recommendations to you, except go find yourself a battery. But how about this? Let's at least try to make that more useful and suggest that when you do look for an external battery to charge up your phone, your iPad or your Mac, you look at UGreen like this one, or Anker, A-N-K-E-R. I used to be exclusively Anker, and I've been slowly moving over to UGreen because I really like their stuff. But either one, they're the ones I would buy from. Right, hang on, let me just put keyboard and one of my batteries away. This one is, it is practical, and it's more practical the more I use it, but it may not necessarily seem so immediately. A Stream Deck. If you haven't got one, or if you haven't seen them, how to describe them, it's like they're a stand with buttons on, but the thing is that these buttons can control things on your Mac, and you decide, you set it up what it is you want them to do. Plus, each button is a little screen. So you can put on any color, any icon you want, and the buttons can change. Press one button and change them all sorts of things go on. I've now had one for several years, and for a couple of those years I've had two Stream Decks, and as of this year I've got three. I don't need three, but it's really handy. After setting up the second one, the large one that's become my main one, and then adding the third that has knobs to control lights and things on it, I did actually though find an unexpected use for the smallest one I had, the first one, and it is so transformative. That's why I want to talk to you about it. In fact, it's so transformative, it's here and it is stuck to my desk, blue tack underneath it. Whenever I open Logic Pro on my Mac Studio, that Stream Deck recognizes I've done so and switches all of its buttons to be the things I need for editing audio quickly. Okay, all it does is mostly replicate keystrokes that you could do directly through the keyboard, but some of them are like chains of... If I cut something, right, well, I always want to change the cursor back from being a blade to the regular pointer, and so that's two keystrokes, but here it's just one button. Or I love this one. That sounds silly, but wait till you see the play pause button. What this actually does is run the Keyboard Maestro macro. Keyboard Maestro is a third-party utility. It is superb. Don't think I could do my work without it, really. But I press that button, Keyboard Maestro looks at the Mac screen, searches the screen for the play button, and if it finds it, clicks dead in the center to start playing. If it doesn't find it, it looks for the stop button and clicks that to stop it. I'm finding it indispensable now, this Stream Deck, for Logic Pro. So much so that when I launch Final Cut Pro, the video editor, then I have it so all the buttons switch over to controlling that. For some reason, I don't know, that set of buttons, it isn't clicking with me. I just kind of keep forgetting they're there. Whereas if I press this button to launch Affinity Publisher, or now just Affinity, I vow to you that this little thing has saved me hours as I've been producing magazines lately. This Stream Deck, well, I mean, prices are all over the place, actually. There's so many sales and offers and things, but if you wanted to buy the same small Stream Deck today, it would retail at £150 or dollars. But there are sales, and also there is now a slightly smaller, but in fact in some ways better, Stream Deck Neo for £100 or dollars. Next, and actually kind of last of what I think are the kind of directly useful ones, get an external drive for your Mac, a drive that you can set up to be a time machine backup. In fact, actually that part, setting it up is easy. You get a drive, you plug it into the Mac goes, oh, drive, and offer to make it into a backup storage device for you. Choosing the drive though, that's harder, sufficiently so that I've got to tell you, I can't make it up. I don't have a great recommendation for you. I mean, I have a pile of things like this, old spinning hard drives that I use, but I really need to buy an SSD one. And right now, as we talk, I don't know the best option for either you or me. LaCie drives do come highly recommended, so do SanDisk ones, and right now expect to pay around £250 or dollars-ish, a bit cheaper in the States, for a 1 terabyte drive. And I think that's what's holding me back, the price and the capacity. I have this spinning hard drive and several of them really, and enough so that when one fails I tend to have the data on another 10, but I'm hesitating over buying SSD because of the price and the capacity. And yet portable SSD that you can slip into your bag when you travel, that's very tempting. And in fact, I have a small one. I don't use it for backups, I use it for certain filming things. Maybe I can just, you know, dual purpose it in some way. Sorry, just let me put that drive back. There we go, very useful on the floor there. That really was it for my list of actual, practical, definitely recommended hardware Christmas presents for writers that you can use to write on and will help your gear. So, but if you're showing this video to someone else in particular, and by the way, they are looking very smart today, I'd like to throw in one small extra and suggest that you think about getting a Kobo e-reader. It's like Kindle, but it's not made by Amazon, and generally it is just very well made. They start at about £150 or $130. I did buy one. I am very impressed with it. But I also have already a large screen iPhone 16 Pro Max, the big screen version, and I now have 2 iPads. I do prefer reading on those. I mean, in theory, just because the screens are so good, they're so much better. But then Kobo has far fewer distractions than the iPad. But then the iPad, come on, it's an iPad. While I think about that, listen to the links of all of this are in the description. So actually, if you've been making notes, just wasted your time a little there. Should have said something about it earlier. Sorry about that. But since we're at the end, let me go for this instead. Let me say this instead. That's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now take care of yourself, eh? Write more. It is important for us. And I'll see you soon.